Hello and welcome to Blossom Sandwich Sews. My name is Yvette and today I'm joining in the vlogger tour for Sew Upcycle 23 hosted by Sew Little Time, Karen and Becky from Notes from the Sewing Room. So thanks so much for organising this challenge and this vlogger tour. This has really motivated me to get a project done that I have had on my sort of back burner plans I'll one day get around to list. So I'm gonna start off by showing you the before and then I'll come back and show you what I've made. So this is the before with my fabric. So this is the Celeste dress by Selkie Patterns. I basically haven't made it since I wore it. So it's got a bunch of things that I'm not keen on about it. So the main thing is that the shoulders are way too wide on me. So the shoulder seam is out here and I think it needs to come in by at least an inch. So my shoulder bone is there, that's the shoulder seam. I think the fabric is wrong for this pattern because I think it's too structured, so it looks kind of nightgowny. It's got this kind of short yoke at the back and then it's gathered. And then I also made the cuffs for the sleeves a bit tight. It's quite a modest dress, so the neckline is high, the sleeves are long, and also the length is quite long, you can't really see. But I think overall it just is unflattering on me. I feel like kind of a bit like I'm wearing a nightgown, so you can't see the skirt. I'll see if I can pan the camera. So the skirt is not quite long enough to be a sort of midi length, but it is about 8 inches over my knees. This dress just isn't working for me. I think the print's too busy as well to like show all the seams and the details. So I'm going to turn it into the Mabel dress by Tilly and the Buttons. So my plan is to just remove the skirt and I'm going to reuse the skirt, probably make it a bit shorter for the Mabel. So it's my preferred length, kind of just above the knee. Then I'm going to reuse as much as I can of the bodice and the sleeves, like perhaps in these wider ends of the sleeves, there'll be a decent amount of fabric. I've also got some scraps of this fabric, so I don't know if that's cheating for the Sew Upcycle challenge, but this has been something that I have been planning to refashion for a while, and I thought that the challenge would be a good motivation to get it done. So the sleeves are actually really big in the Mabel. So this is the pattern piece for the sleeve in the Mabel. So I'm definitely not going to have enough fabric to do the long sleeve version, but I think I will be able to make the shorter sleeved version if I use, or maybe even the elbow length version, if I use some of the scraps as well. So that's one thing to bear in mind with upcycling. You're generally much more limited on the amount of fabric that you have to use. I'm going to make a note of how much this shoulder is over by, just in case I do want to make this pattern again. And then I'm going to start taking it apart and cutting out the Mabel.
Just a quick tip for the random 32mm distance for top stitching. I moved my needle position along by 2mm so I could use the marking on my machine.
So here she is, the finished article, my Tilly and the Buttons Mabel dress that I refashioned out of my Celeste dress. So I'll put in a side-by-side picture so that you can compare, do a little spot the difference. So yeah, I don't know if this technically counts as like a full upcycle project because I did have some scraps of the fabric as well, but I'm going to count it as a win because it did encourage me to take a dress that I wasn't wearing and transform it into something that I think now is quite cute and I think I will wear. So I'm going to talk to you a bit about the Tilly and the Buttons Mabel pattern. So I think I'm probably way behind the curve here. I'm sure most of you have probably already made it, but this is actually my first one. So in terms of the difficulty level, I thought it was pretty straightforward. You do the shirring on the skirt and then attach it to the bodice. I did size down, so normally I'm a size 6 in Tilly and the Buttons, but but I did size down to a 5, and I think that was the correct decision, and I think I will consider doing that with Tilly patterns in the future, depending on like the style and the fit and the finished garment measurements, obviously. But I do find often the shoulders can be a bit wide on Tilly patterns just because of the block that they use and my shape. So the way that it's constructed, there is elastic in the sleeves and in the front and back as well, but it means that because you put the elastic in first, you can't try it on before you've like secured it all. So I think ideally I would shorten the elastic in the sleeve heads just a little bit, maybe by like 2 centimeters, because it's a tiny bit loose. Like, I don't think it's going to fall off my shoulders. I think it's going to be fine, but just for personal preference, I think I might shorten it a tiny bit for next time. But obviously, because I couldn't try it on, I just kind of had to go with the suggested. So I think it could be possible to change it, but it's not super straightforward because of the way that they're all sewn together. Also with the sleeves, so they're shirring in the sleeves as well, and I found that this sort of ruffle bit on the edge was really, really like sticking out, so I did add an extra line of shirring. And I think the shirring on the waist is really comfortable and nice. I think my sort of upper arms are a bit more sensitive, so I do find it a little bit itchy. Like, I haven't worn this much, so I'm gonna just leave it and see how I feel about it. But my preference with sleeves normally, even if they've got like an elastic cuff in a tube, I like to just do a cuff and then gather it in, just so that it's not got the sort of bunched up fabric against my arms, if that makes sense. But that's just a matter of personal preference as well. Another thing about the Mabel pattern is that it doesn't come with pockets, which I think is because the waist is shirred, so if you put too much in the pockets it would like pull out the shape. But I did add, I don't know if you'll be able to see because this is a busy print, but I did add some little patch pockets on the front just because I find it really handy. Like, even if I'm not carrying things in my pocket, sometimes if you're like, you know, walking around with your phone in your hand and then you've got a bunch of other stuff that you need to pick up, it's just really useful to have somewhere to just chuck that stuff, just to get it out of your hands for a second. So yeah, I think addition of the little patch pockets was great. I think it would be fine with side seam pockets as well, and that's easy enough to add them in. So originally, so this skirt is the skirt that was on the Celeste dress, and that did have side seam pockets. But I, because of where the pockets were positioned and the amount of shirring that I needed to do on the skirt, the shirring would have gone over where the side seam pockets were. So all I did, because I didn't want to have to reconstruct the whole skirt again, because that's one of the bonuses of upcycling, is that some of the work's already done for you. So I just cut off the pockets and then just overlocked over the edge where I'd cut them off, just to get rid of those pockets basically, and have a neat finished edge still. And the best part was I didn't have to re-hem it as well. So on the Mabel pattern, they don't have a pattern piece for the skirt. They just have like a short pattern piece like this for if you want to make the peplum, and then it says just extend it as long as you want for making a skirt, which is good for me because sometimes the skirt pattern pieces are too long because I'm only 5'2", and yeah, so that was fine. I mean, obviously I didn't need to use the skirt pattern piece at all because I already had the skirt and I just made it work with what I had. So I do have a few scraps of this fabric left, which I might be able to use for like a future project dresser girl maybe. But yeah, I did use up most of this fabric, so that was really good. And yeah, I'm excited to make some more Mabels. One thing as well that I might do if I find it's not easy to change the elastic in the shoulders is just add a little thing to anchor it to my bra straps. So if anyone has done that to some of their previous makes, do let me know if you've got a preferred method, because I haven't actually done that before. But yeah, thanks so much for joining me. I'm really excited to see all of your upcycle projects. If you want to join in, there is still a little bit of time. The challenge runs until the 31st, the end of the month, and we're going to have a reveal day on the 31st, so everyone's going to share their upcycle projects all at once. So that's going to be a really exciting day, and there's also amazing prizes to be won as well, including a year of free Stash Hub Plus, which I obviously have to plug, being the founder of that business. But yeah, thanks so much to Karen and Becky for organising such a fun challenge, and yeah, I'm really excited to see what else you all have made. Bye!